Guten Abend, no? And welcome to the German Society of Pennsylvania. My name is Mark McGuigan, and as surprising as that name may make it sound, I am the president currently of the German Society of Pennsylvania, and very, very happy to see all of you here tonight. On behalf of the Society and of our partners, Congregation Rodef Shalom, the Jewish Communities Relations Council and Action and Reconciliation Service for Peace, I want to welcome all of you to the opening of the Baeck Institute's exhibit, 1700 Years of Jewish Life in German-Speaking Lands. This is the second event in our winter program of the German Jewish Heritage Series. The first was a beer brewing workshop and talk led by Rabbi Eli Friedman at Rodef Shalom, and if you missed it, well, I'm so sorry, because it was really fantastic. Since I'm pretty much here primarily to welcome everybody, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk about the topic of welcome, a topic that I think is pretty central to tonight's event and to this series that we've created for the coming months. The German Society of Pennsylvania, for those of you who are not familiar with us, is North America's oldest German organization. We were founded 258 years ago to welcome the first major non-British European immigrant group to what was then the British colonies. They came to colonial Philadelphia, which was the chief port of entry for Germans at the time, pretty much all through the 18th century. These early immigrants arrived under trying circumstances, often paying for their passage with indentured servitude, a system that was frequently abused in a variety of ways, and often encountering prejudice in the otherwise largely British colony of Pennsylvania. The Society was here and was really founded to provide welcome, connection, and service to these individuals, principles that remain important to the Society today. The German Society continued to provide welcome in the form of material, social, and emotional support to German-speaking immigrants well into the 20th century. As new immigrants arrived and assumed leadership, the organization grew in ways that reflected events in Germany. Refugees came from the failed democratic revolution in 1848 and brought with them a commitment to German language and culture. These leaders expanded our library, sponsored lectures, and helped shape the meaning of being German American at a time when German identity was changing rapidly back in Europe. It is interesting that not long after our own founding, a group of Ashkenazi Jews broke away from Mishka Israel here in Philadelphia and formed the city's first German Jewish synagogue, Rodef Shalom. This was in 1794, so quite some time ago. They incorporated under the suspiciously similar name of the Hebrew German Society, Rodef Shalom. Rodef Shalom is our neighbor at Broad and Green Street, and one of our partners tonight. And I want to acknowledge Rabbi Eli Friedman, one of our partners who's with us tonight. Where are you, Eli? Interestingly, Rabbi Friedman is not the first rabbi from Rodef Shalom to grace our halls. In fact, we know from 19th century newspapers that the German-born and trained rabbis at Rodef Shalom were speakers here at the Society, welcomed by us as carriers of German culture, or Deutschtum, here in the United States. But it is a part of the history documented in the exhibit tonight that at times complicated, at times brilliant, and at times tragic history did not last, and not only in Europe. 18 years ago, historian Birta Pfleger wrote a history of the German Society, where she documented how German fascism found echoes within parts of the German immigrant and German American communities in the mid-1930s. The artificial line that Nazi Germany drew between Germans and Jews found supporters also here in Philadelphia and also at the German Society. We know from her research that some of our leaders and members were very close to an otherwise deeply sympathetic to the German fascist movement here in Philadelphia. While never adopting direct statements or positions, it was clear from the Nazi propaganda that we found in our library and from statements by leading members of the organization that this was not a home to German Jews arriving as persecuted refugees from Germany. While there were resignations over these issues by principal members, and while by the late 1930s the Society issued clear statements opposing Nazism, there was also no reckoning in the years that followed with what had happened. The past is not present. We remember it to serve, as the Germans say, as a Mahnmal, as a warning. Because in addition to that moment of moral failure, there was a failure to fulfill our own purpose, which is to welcome German-speaking immigrants and refugees. And at that moment, we failed to provide a place for German Jews coming to Philadelphia to find connection and to find a home for their German culture. The past teaches us, so let me say on behalf of myself, the board, and our members, that today the German Society is a house of welcome to our diverse neighbors here in Philadelphia of many languages, religions, ethnicities, and cultures. But as a German-American organization, we are also a house of welcome to the increasingly diverse Germans of today, whether the growing community of Jews in Germany, now reaching over 200,000, whether to Muslim Germans, to African Germans, to LGBT Germans, to all of these are people who also come now from Germany to us. We see them here, and they are all part of the community of Germany. They're all part of the German-American community, and we are a house of welcome to all. We are also a house of welcome to all of you. We are honored with your presence and hope that this will not be the last time that you come to see us. We invite you to participate in the ongoing German Jewish Heritage Series, which will unfold over the coming months. We have a couple of events coming up, a very special German Jewish Shabbat dinner and service at Rodef Shalom this coming Friday, and also a talk by author Nora Krug about her own struggle with German identity in the post-Holocaust era. And that is going to be happening next Sunday on the 29th of January. Please come and participate in those events. We welcome always new members, and information about all of this is available online or at the entrance where you came in, and also a little bit also on the flyer that you were given in your seats. And with that, once again, welcome everybody. And I want to bring up Jason Holtzman to speak for the Jewish Community Relations Council.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening. My name is Jason Holtzman, and I'm the director of the Jewish Community Relations Council, also known as the JCRC, of the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia. I just have to say, looking around at this room right now, seeing this packed audience, it's a very special moment to be hosting this event, this exhibit from the Leo Baeck Society about German Jewish history inside of this building, the German Society of Pennsylvania. Before I introduce our guest speaker for the evening, I'd like to thank the German Society of Pennsylvania for hosting this special exhibit and tonight's presentation. I'd also like to thank Alliance of America for sponsoring tonight's event and the other partners who are hosting this exhibit, Congregation Rodef Shalom and the German Voluntary Service Action Reconciliation Service for Peace. It is a really special opportunity to learn about the life of German-speaking Jews and their descendants. All too often in the Jewish community, we only hear about the events of the Holocaust and the murder of 6 million Jews. We lose focus when we're looking at the Holocaust at times on the profound impact that Jews made on modern German and world culture, the cultural impact of life in Germany on Jewish life, and the continuation of Jewish life in Germany today after the horrors of the Holocaust. Thank you to the Leo Baeck Foundation for the work that you do to keep these memories alive. Now about tonight's speaker. Dr. Frank Mecklenburg is the Mark M. and Lottie Salton Senior Historian at the Leo Baeck Institute, a research library and archive that documents the histories and culture of German-speaking Jews, primarily in the 19th and 20th centuries, but also including documents dating back to the Middle Ages. The Leo Baeck Institute was founded in 1955 as a repository for the books, papers, photos, and documents that were salvaged from Central Europe after World War II and donated to the Institute. As senior historian, Dr. Mecklenburg is responsible for overseeing the acquisition of new collections for the Institute's extensive archival holdings. In this capacity, he works closely with community organizations to identify potential donors and liaises directly with donors and their families to arrange the gift of their personal papers and artifacts. As Director of Research, he oversees the award of grants to scholars throughout the Institute's various fellowship programs. Dr. Mecklenburg is also responsible for ensuring the preservation of the Institute's archival holdings and expanding access to them. Dr. Mecklenburg played an instrumental role in the conception, development, and implementation of the Institute's digitization project called DigiBaeck, which put the majority of Leo Baeck's archival holdings online by 2012. Dr. Mecklenburg joined the Leo Baeck Institute in 1984 as an archivist and took on his current role in 1996. He supervises the Berlin branch of the Leo Baeck Institute archives at the Jewish Museum in Berlin, and he represents the Leo Baeck Institute New York and the Leo Baeck Institute International Executive Committee, which coordinates the efforts of the International Leo Baeck Institutes. Born and educated in Berlin, Germany, Dr. Mecklenburg lives in Manhattan with his wife, Atina Grossman, a professor of history at the Cooper Union. They have 2 adult children. Dr. Mecklenburg, the floor is yours.
So thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to speak about our exhibit, 1700 Years of Jews in German-speaking lands. And let me start with saying something about the Leo Baeck Institute itself. It's an institution that is talking from a perspective of the German Jewish diaspora. It was founded by, after the Holocaust, by German Jewish refugees and survivors. And it is concerned with the history and culture of German-speaking Jews, meaning it is beyond Germany. It is covering a large part of Europe, continental Europe. Now the Leo Baeck Institute is part of a larger entity called the Center for Jewish History, where we joined more than 20 years ago, and which is a conglomerate of different Jewish research libraries, YIVO, dealing with Eastern European history, Slavic languages, and Yiddish, but also with the American Jewish Historical Society. And I was actually given a tour today of the holdings of the society here, and the early pamphlets of the Jewish congregations in Philadelphia are usually written in German, and it is sort of a cross-section of the work of Leo Baeck Institute and the American Jewish Historical Society, which is now all available in one big catalog system at the Center for Jewish History. So the context of the work of Leo Baeck Institute is also American minority history and the American minority perspective. And in that, it is part of Jewish history at large. German society knows, the German society here knows about the immigration to America in the 19th century. And after Napoleon, the main Jewish community in the United States came from Central Europe, was German-speaking, and until in the late 19th century, with the rising pogroms in Eastern Europe, a large contingent of Eastern European Jews came and sort of joined the Jewish life in the Americas, and in terms changed the demographics very much. So the minority status of German Jews in America was, of course, very different from that of life in Europe, where the Jews had always been a minority that was characterized by their suppression. And I think that this exhibit, I hope you have had a chance to look at it before, but I certainly would love you to look at it more. Life in the European lands was very different from how it is in the United States. And I just want to mention that until a few years ago, anti-Semitism in this country had become a topic that was of sort of seemingly minor importance until with the rise of the new right, it suddenly has become a major topic again. So one of the questions, and that is in connection with this exhibit, how have German Jews become in America like a model of integration, of participation and assimilation, in contrast to the old country? And so I already mentioned the differing position of anti-Semitism in the United States, and it is sort of one of the aspects of this exhibit that you will look at it with your experience of how the Jewish experience in the Americas sort of compares with that in Europe. So the consequence, of course, is that, you have already sort of alluded to the issues, it brings up a lot of uncomfortable questions. And I hope that this exhibit will also enable you to sort of to address these things sort of with more specific material that you can see here. So I do not want to go through the exhibit that you can do yourself, but so why did we call it shared history? Because usually it is always that question of what have Jews contributed to society. And in this case, given the long history of Jewish presence in Central Europe, it is not the question of contribution, but it is really the question of participation, of being part of life as it has existed over a long period of time. And so let me see here. Yeah, and so what this exhibit is trying to show is the relationship between Jews and non-Jews. And it's not about Jewish communities or Jews as a minority, as it has been done in Germany and in Europe, when in the year 2021, on the basis of that starting document here, the first presence documented in Cologne in 321, when Jews for the first time were clearly documented as living in Central European lands. And so that over a period of 1,700 years, with all its ups and downs, it is, of course, not a question of Germans and Jews, as you will often hear when talked about in Germany, but it is really how German Jews are Germans, in the sense of being part of the population. I mean, how could it not be after 1,700 years? This is longer than most people, most populations in Central Europe have lived there. So it's a question of mutual influence and how much of a common experience and of course, what are the limits? And I just want to point out a few examples where we were trying to illustrate the relationship. So, for instance, the Spice Tower, which is a ritual object used in the service, which is an object that actually was produced by non-Jewish craftspeople, and which is here demonstrated as an object that speaks to the question of inclusion in society. The glasses of Moses Mendelssohn, sort of an iconic item in the collections of Leo Baeck Institute, is a symbol of the acculturation of Jews in German lands, as it was in the course of the Age of Enlightenment. And to be pointed out that Moses Mendelssohn at the time was regarded as one of the major philosophers in Central Europe. And there is that example that at a young age, he participated in an essay contest about some philosophical questions, and he actually was awarded the first prize in this, and Immanuel Kant only the second prize. Or as a symbol of assimilation, the cross of Fanny Mendelssohn, a granddaughter of Moses Mendelssohn, which is obviously a Christian symbol, and it needs to be said that out of Mendelssohn's children and grandchildren, the majority actually converted to Christianity, which later in the 20th century did not stop from being identified as Jews. So this travel exhibit is structured by themes. And as you can see, it is about daily life, it is about migration, it is about exclusion and inclusion, acculturation and achievements. These are all topics that actually apply to lots of other minorities too. There is another version of this, which is an online exhibit, and there I think everybody has seen a pamphlet, which is a poster that was folded up, which actually has images of all the different objects that were included in the full exhibit, which is available online. And that is an exhibit that is organized chronologically. So there are different ways of how the story can be told. And obviously, over a long array of 1,700 years, there are lots of ups and downs,